Last week we looked at how we should listen to a sermon. This week I thought we'd follow it up on how we should come to church, which is a bit of a different way of putting it. Dave, would they kill the music there? Sorry. So let me pray as we get going. Father, thank you for a chance to be together, be it online or be it here in person, and a chance to think about your word and your church and our attitude as Christians. Please will you be with us now. Please be especially with Desiree, who's run off her feet and still has a lot of work to do tonight. Please give her strength to get through everything that she needs to do. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so I've turned another little book. So the first last week was based on this book, which is really helpful. This week is based on another little book that's available online. So I don't even have a physical copy of it, called The Ministry of the Pew. And I put the reference there for you. I've actually downloaded it onto our Google Drive, so you can download it yourself and read the whole booklet. It's quite short and really, really good. And I've tried to turn that into a Bible study, and you guys are my guinea pigs because it's the first time I've done this one. So it'll probably need a little bit of work, but no better way to test it than to do it.
Is it written by the same guy?
No, it's by a different guy called Colin Marshall. He was a student worker, a lifetime student worker in Australia. He gave himself to student work, and that's all he ever did. And they begged and pleaded for him to take over churches and even become a bishop, and he just said, no, my job is student work. And did an incredible work over many, many, many years. Old man now, down in Australia. And he put this together. What else was I going to say? Oh, and for those online, I've pasted a link into the chat to this booklet. So if you need a copy of the actual booklet that we've got, it's there in the chat for you. Right, so the introductory paragraph. This is not a study on why you should come to church. That would be a different topic altogether. This is a study on how you should come to church. Is your approach to going to church any different to going to the movies or to a sports game? In other words, I'm asking in a subtle way, or trying to, do you come to church with a consumer attitude? I'm coming to see what I can get. I'm coming for entertainment. I expect to be entertained by the rugby players. I expect to be entertained by whatever's on the big screen. And when I come to church, I expect to be entertained. I expect an entertaining talk. I expect an entertaining music. I expect entertaining coffee afterwards. So what is your attitude? Is it the same? Possibly. And I think for many Christians, it actually is, to how they approach going to movies. It all depends on your view of church. Is church a place where you expect to serve or be served? Is church a place where you go to unwind or to go to work? And hence my little for our subject today. What you believe about these things will affect the way we think about every aspect of attending church. Comments so far before we dive into some questions? Okay, I'm just muting those online. So if you do need to ask a question, feel free to unmute. Don't be embarrassed in any way. Unmute and ask a question. So, number one, why should I think about when I arrive at church? What about where I park? What about where I sit? Why should we be thinking about things like that, do you think?
Planning, isn't it? Just to be there on time so that if you want to park under the tree, you get there in time.
Yeah. So there's certainly that. Get organized, get there on time.
Also try and make sure that you don't inconvenience others.
Yeah.
You might need, like, it might be very convenient for you to park as close as you can to the front.
I was thinking of that.
But you might know there's a disabled person who comes.
Yeah, exactly. So where you park, for instance, the old people struggle to walk up the slope here. So why not, if you're able-bodied, park at the bottom? Exercise is good. Park as far away as possible. which is very countercultural. You know, when you go into the movies, it's fine. It doesn't really matter when you arrive, as long as it's before the movie starts. But when you come to church, you might want to think about coming an hour earlier, even if you're not on duty, just to see what there is to be done. You might, you know, decide to where you're going to sit. You know, the old traditional way, I sit in the same chair every single Sunday. Well, maybe our attitude to that should be different. If we're coming to serve, well, then we need to be nearer to the people we want to serve. So that might affect where you park, it might affect where you sit. Certainly it affects what time you arrive. How do churches generally grow, do you think? Exactly. Hey, long ago maybe you could put up a sign outside, church open, all welcome. Open the doors and then watch the people stream in, because it was a church going culture. That doesn't work generally. That's the exception. It used to work. I mean, St. James Church in Kenilworth is an example where literally they opened the doors and people flooded in, you know, without them doing anything. But don't make the mistake of thinking that's normal. That's an exceptional work of God. That's not how church over the centuries has ever worked. If you look at the book of Acts, where the early church was getting going, people invited people. That's how it works. You went out there. I mean, think of the disciples. You know, one goes and calls another one. Come and see this guy we've met. Think about the woman at the well. She goes back into a village and invites the whole village. Come and meet a man who knows everything I ever did, she says, which was quite a lot that she had done. But he knew it all. So inviting. Churches grow by inviting. So whose job is it mainly to grow my local church?
It must be you. After you just said that's the wrong answer.
Exactly. The congregation.
Yeah.
It's the congregation's job. If the congregation aren't on board, the church will not grow. Andy and Richard can preach their hearts out, but if no one's inviting friends, of course it's not going to grow. Andy and Richard might bump into a few people at the supermarket that we invite, and one or two people might come through that. But more people are going to die than going to come, if that's the case. So you guys, the congregation, if you think about it, we've got like, yeah, I don't know, 150 people on our books. Those are members. Probably about, I don't know, 200 people that come on and off. And they've each got a group of 30, 40 friends they could invite. Now we're talking about multiplication. We're talking about big numbers. That won't all rock up at church, of course, but exposure, that you can expose the church to and invite people to. Suddenly the number becomes enormous. If everyone has the right view, and invitation is a priority. So the congregation has far more contacts than Andy and Richard. So bringing others to church then. There are some reasons why we might be reluctant to invite people to church. Firstly, you might think that church is for Christians, not for unbelievers, okay? But read what Paul says here about the church gathering. He says, and he's talking about the difference between tongues and prophecy, which we're not going to get into right now. I want us to see something different from this passage. He writes, if the whole church comes together and everyone speaks in tongues, and inquirers or unbelievers come in, will they not say that you are out of your mind? But if an unbeliever or an inquirer comes in while everyone is prophesying, they are all convicted of sin and are brought under judgment by all, as the secrets of their hearts are laid bare. So they will fall down and worship God, exclaiming, God is really among you. So is church for Christians or unbelievers? All of the above, exactly. The whole church comes together, verse 23, as well as unbelievers and inquirers. Paul expects every church meeting to be a mixed bunch of Christians and non-Christians. Unbelievers, people who just don't believe, so that's fairly set in their unbelief, but also some inquirers, people who are asking questions, as well as believers. He's expecting church to be a mixture of people in different walks Christian walks. What mistake might we make if we think church is only for Christians?
Will grow.
Yeah, we won't grow. I mean, you might go and invite Christians from other churches, and that would make other churches shrink, which is not nice, unless, of course, it's a cult, in which case, yeah, do your best to get everyone out of there. But the church is not going to grow. And I'm not talking about Christchurch Howick. I'm talking about Christ's church in Howick, right? His church, his people in Howick. You know, it's no good just transplanting Christians between churches, moving Christians around. That's not kingdom growth. We need to be reaching outside of Christian community to invite people to our church. So don't just go around inviting Christians from other churches to come to Christchurch Howick.
You know what we did in Christchurch Council? Because a lot of people will just say, oh, I'm not going to church. We had a group where we had like, well, it was mainly for women, and we had different, like a patchwork thing or whatever. And we just had a prayer and a short little message, you know, tiny little thing. And then people got comfortable with us. And then they felt more inclined to maybe just try church. Whereas I find generally, if you ask a non-believer, they just go, whatever, you know.
Yeah, well,
and that's, we sort of used it as like a stepping stone.
yeah.
So that they would meet the people from the church, feel comfortable, then you could say, you know, why don't you come on Sunday?
Absolutely. So pre-evangelism.
Yeah.
It's not even evangelism. It's just building relationships. And I think that that's the most successful type of evangelism, is through relationships, not knocking on doors. You know, long ago, that's what we used to do. EE3 was a big thing, and we used to knock on doors. I did it. But actually, I think it's very ineffective. A massive amount of effort and very little fruit, because people just, I'm suspicious of someone that knocks on my door at night. You know, I'm not going to open the door and invite them in. Maybe long ago, and of course, EE3 was written by, I think his name was James Anderson in the States. And their people are very open and very hospitable. And there were no fences and no gates. So you literally did walk in, and people did invite you in for tea. It was absolutely no problem at all. And it's a church-going country. It was back then. So it worked brilliantly in that context. But not in our context. Much better is to take the time, and it's much harder work, to build relationships with people through common interest groups, through sports clubs, through fishing, through whatever your interests are. Build relationships, constantly have an eye for the outsider, and think, you know, it's no accident that I enjoy fishing and so enjoys fishing. Let me befriend them and try and be a good friend. And who knows what opportunities and what doors God will open in the future to invite them to a Christmas service or an Easter service or a kid's baptism or who knows what. But building relationships, it's tiring and it's time consuming, but it's much more effective. So yeah, if you think church is just for Christians, well, you'll end up with a ghetto-like mentality, and you won't be thinking outside. It becomes very inward looking. What mistake will we make if we think church is mainly for unbelievers, for the outsiders?
Well, that's a fatal mistake.
Yeah. What is fatal about it, John?
Like we don't need to be together or to be encouraged or to be reminded again of a savior that died for us.
Yeah, they need the gospel. We don't need the gospel.
Yeah.
So as I've said in the next paragraph, many churches run separate services for believers and outsiders, a regular service and then an evangelistic service. And battery is on. Sorry, I'm about to run out of power here. So yeah, I've been at a church like that before, where once a month we'd have an evangelistic or a guest service where you're expected to invite guests and have the gospel will be preached on that Sunday. But the rest of the time, the preacher preaches on all sorts of different topics, but Jesus and the cross are very rarely mentioned. It's all about God, which is not bad, of course, but it's all very general. And it's designed to build up Christians and help Christians manage their teenagers and help Christians in their businesses and all of this stuff. But the gospel is not clearly preached every single Sunday. So that becomes the danger. The other danger is that you don't preach certain parts of the Bible. If you if you think that you've got a, as I've said here, a evangelistic service. So I'm not going to be talking about hell and sin, because that would scare the unbeliever off. I want them to come back next week. So I just preach the nice bits. God loves you, God can save you, God wants to bless you. And it becomes what they call seeker sensitive. Seeker sensitive. And so the music is top class because you want to entertain these people. You want them back next week. That's the whole goal. So you make the music as good as possible, the coffee as good as possible, the welcome as good as possible. Everything is there to try and get the unbeliever to come back again. And you end up compromising eventually at the end of the day. Yes, Rob.
There's a very nice saying that epitomizes it. It says, are we entertaining the goats or feeding the sheep?
Yes.
I think that sort of pictures it.
So exactly, are we entertaining the goats or are we feeding the sheep? Now there's a third option, because both of those are wrong, aren't they? The one is saying that church is there to feed the sheep. We're not interested in goats, they must stay away. We only want the sheep. The other one is saying, no, the sheep can look after themselves, we're going to entertain goats. And I'm saying there's a third option, right? You're going to have sheep and goats at every church. And so the answer is preach the gospel. Preach the gospel every single Sunday. And then you know what? You will be feeding the sheep and you will be challenging the goats. They will be hearing about Christ, or they'll be encouraged by hearing about Christ. And the same gospel, the same sermon will end up building up Christians, building up the church, as well as challenging and convicting the unbeliever. And so you don't need two different messages, and you don't need two different services. It's one service, one message, and if it's preached properly, the Bible's preached properly, and it's a Christ-centered sermon, actually, it doesn't matter who you are, it is relevant to you.
But you're still feeding the sheep.
And you feed the sheep. They grow, and they are encouraged and challenged and rebuked and disciplined and everything with the same sermon that you're using to challenge unbelievers to put their faith in Christ. Okay. So what do you think about all that? Inviting friends and who you think church is for? And especially this idea of two different services. Yes, John.
So I've obviously got a history of the church because my dad was a minister, and there was just no option for us. We were forced to go, and I mean, a lot of it, a lot of my theology was quite faulty, actually. But I've been reluctant to invite friends to church because often, not in our local church here, but growing up as a kid, because it was never, I mean, I invited friends, but they never, ever, I don't think I ever had many friends returning after that. It was just never a comfortable place for even me as the minister's son, There was a lot, I just found it, I mean, I had my own issues because I saw a certain type of behavior from Christians at church and a certain type during the week because my dad was counseling people and I got to see what was actually going on. So I suppose I had an insider's eye, but I've still sort of carry a lot of that I'm actually nervous to invite people and trust God for what he's about to say. I've even invited people to our local church here and they've never returned, and some have been quite scathing about the sermon. So it's not something that I enjoy doing, to be honest.
That's the type of friends you're keeping, John.
No, but I'm absolutely with you there, John. Like, I feel the exact same way about inviting people. You invite them with this anticipation that they don't come back, and then they actually don't come back, and then it just reinforces it in your head. You're like,
it's never doing that again.
Yeah. I'll leave it to somebody else, sort of thing. I mean, I know it sounds harsh, but it's really hard.
Yeah. So the challenge then to the staff team is not to make church awkward. The gospel is offensive enough. You're inviting your friends to church, you know what they're going to hear. Even if you haven't, if you don't know, you might not know what the sermon is going to be, but you know they're going to be told that they're a sinner, that they're unforgiven, that they need to repent, they need to bow the knee to Christ. You know, they're going to hear all this, and that's highly offensive. They need to basically come and die. It's the invitation of the gospel. Come and die, take up your cross and follow me. That's offensive enough, right? Why make church, therefore, even more difficult and more awkward and more unfriendly? And some churches go out of their way to be cold and unfriendly places, which is silly. So our job as a staff team is to make sure that everything about the church is as normal and natural and appealing as possible. That there's no silly hoops that you're making Christians, you're holding hands and singing Kumbaya at the end of the service and things that are just awkward and stupid. But you know, they are going to be offended. They're going to be challenged and they might not come back, and that's up to God and them.
No,
But
we came back.
yeah,
We came here 8 years ago when we first moved to Howard.
Yeah.
And we arrived here at the church and we virtually had membership papers thrust into our hands as we arrived. Yes. And
side, yeah.
then it was the morning service. Then we got in here, we saw the silver hair, and then we ran away. But we came back.
And now you're a council member. Yeah. So Christians forget how difficult it is for non-Christians to come to church. And you guys were Christians when you came here. I mean, and yet you found it difficult to integrate. We must put ourselves in the shoes of the unbeliever.
You know, I think people who haven't grown up in a Christian family view church, they don't actually know what they're going to see when they walk through that door, because you've got the range of the Catholics down to the happy clappers. So they really don't know what they're going to see. And I wonder if it wouldn't be an idea to have a sort of push where you send out invitations and you say, come and meet the minister, you know, bring your meat real bright, and you can ask questions to the minister in a
Unchallenging.
That's a very good idea.
In a very unchurchy way.
and so that they can actually come and see that we're not going to do any of those things that scare them.
Sure, that's an idea.
You know, just have a big drive of, you know, this is our, come and see what we're about. They meet people and
almost like a chill and grill, but not for Christians.
Yeah.
Like a chill and grill, but where we don't ask all the crazy hard, you know, predestination questions. You know, we don't have it like in a church. He says you have it outside around a fire. And that's awesome.
Very good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, let's think about that one. That's a good one. You see, constantly thinking of the outsider, having the outsider in mind, not organizing church around the outsider. We're not going to do that, but we have to be sympathetic to them. It is a strange culture, the Christian culture. We sing. If you ever thought how strange it is for a bunch of people to get together, a bunch of strangers, relative strangers, to get together and then start singing together. Where else in your life do you do that? Where do you see that? Nowhere. Maybe in Wales at a rugby match, you know.
A pop concert, but then you've got common expression. You've got a common taste.
You think if someone has been to church once for whatever reason, and it was a Catholic church. I mean, my daughter's son-in-law had to go to Catholic service because she was asked to be godmother. Well, I think my son-in-law had sleepless nights for those altars because, I mean, he said there was not one thing that he could take away that was meaningful to them. They didn't do a sermon. They were all dressed in this, and he said he was so awkward, well, they both were, because everyone knew the responses and they were up and down and they didn't know what was going on.
Exactly.
And I mean, if that's the only perception you have of church, I mean, you're not going to readily come anyway, even if it's not a Catholic church. There are things.
How about this for a challenge? Okay, take this up. See if you can be brave enough to take this up. Sometime in the next 2-3 months, go to Oasis on a Sunday. I'm not saying that they're as bad as a Catholic church, but it is very, very different culture to this. Go across to Oasis and visit them on Sunday morning. And go to the Catholic church and visit them. And just to put yourself in that's how people, pagan people, feel coming here. It's as big a shock as for us to go across to Oasis and off to the Catholic church.
Off to the mosque. For us as Christians to go to the mosque.
Go to the mosque and see.
I mean, they won't let you in, but
Yeah,
yeah.
they will actually.
Really? Okay.
But yeah, go and see what it feels like to walk through the doors of a place and you have no idea what to expect. You don't know whether they're going to make you stand or sit or stand on your head. It's terrifying. And that's what we're asking people to do when we just invite them to church. And without thinking about, sure, what are they going to be going through? What emotional trauma? From the time they park their car till the time they sit down, it's a big, big ask. Big
They
ask.
need to know that we're not funny people.
Yeah.
Before they actually put their foot in.
Not all of us, anyway.
Remember, we went to the adult baptism, the NCF in Marysville. Five big screens, a piece of band, electric guitars, and then coffee machine being sold.
And I
And
went
you
to
can't see
another,
because this one's dancing, this one's waving flags.
I went to another carry one where there were two women doing the most bizarre dancing next to me. There is no ways I could have concentrated on a thing. It was just, they were there wiggling and doing. I was actually traumatized. I really
But
was.
it's scantily clad. Not even.
I'm actually very outgoing, but I looked at this and I thought, no, really, how do you expect anyone to concentrate on a thing? And they sing the same thing over and over. And so they were just
The
like,
mantra.
no, I'm sorry. it was not
But we don't have these funny things. We have a low threshold. We don't wear funny garbs or hats. We are not spectacular. There's no speaking in tongues. It's just, I think in our case, it's coming from the pulpit. The words that are spoken there in a very straightforward, very moderately voiced, unexcited, non-passionate way.
People don't know that. How do we get them to know that they can actually come here and feel very comfortable?
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose part of it is up to us in our way of inviting them. You know, hey, listen, I know you probably got other plans for Sunday, but you know, why don't you come along to church with me first? And I know you probably think it's going to be really weird, but our church is like this, this, and this. You know, while you're inviting them, tell them that we're normal and not weird.
Reassuring. You know, we've got a problem with our young adults and our youth. We've got 30 youth on a Friday and 20 young adults on a Thursday, but they don't come to church on a Sunday. And we invite them. Just a plain invitation, a general invitation doesn't do anything. They're just not interested. And, you know, it's the young adult, the youth you can understand, they're sort of at the mercy of their parents, but the young adults, and it's something I'm wrestling with, like, how can we get people to come to church, you know? Anyway, it is what we need to recognize is that it's a strange environment to ask people to step into. And we need to not make it difficult for them or more difficult than it needs to be. Like as a church council, the rules of, you know, dress code and crazy stuff that happens and you don't really understand what's going on. Everything must be in simple English and well explained and no crazy stuff, you know. As Paul says, otherwise the inquirer or the unbeliever will say, these people are out of their mind. We don't want that. We want people to say, these people are actually quite normal. Actually, that would be great. They're not normal about their lifestyles. That's quite abnormal because actually we are constantly fighting against sin. They are inviting sin in. They should know the difference there. But well, let's move on. We might not invite our friends because we are embarrassed by our church meetings. And I think we've discussed this already. What are some of the reasons we might be embarrassed? Well, we might be embarrassed that the sermon might not be gospel focused. Like eventually after 20 times of inviting my friend, they'd come along and then the minister is talking absolute nonsense about who knows what instead of the gospel.
But we don't have that here.
Hopefully,
I
yeah.
might have had that in my old church.
Okay, yeah.
But not here.
Okay, I hope you can be fairly sure that Richard and Andy are going to preach the passage. Like they're going to preach Christ from the passage, and that's it, you know. So hopefully that one we can get right. The other, you know, you might find that the sound is terrible. No one can hear, especially if you're inviting an old person. They'll come, they can't get up the steps. They won't be able to find a parking. They won't be able to hear properly because the sound system is terrible. These are things we can fix. So we must fix them. You know, let's get a sound system that works, and we've done that. We've upgraded the sound system. We've had a lady who tried to come here and she had an ear implant. You know, I can't remember what that thing's called. Yeah, and but we don't have a hearing aid loop. No. But that's something we can fix. We can actually put a hearing aid loop in so people can hear. We can fix the access, the wheelchair access. We can fix the car park, which we're trying to do. Let's fix the stuff that can be fixed easily. Fix that stuff, get that out of the way, and then people, you know, it's a bit easier to invite people to church. How can we be less embarrassed? Well, you know, I think if we are aware of the outsider, if we're thinking of the outsider, if it's outsider friendly, not seeker sensitive, where we never preach the gospel, because we don't want to say anything that might, you know, be awkward. But if we are just sensitive, if we're just aware of the outsider, we make them feel welcome. We show them where the toilets are and where the children's church is if they arrive with kids, and we just go out of our way to make them feel that actually this is okay. This is okay. It's quite nice, you know, that when we have kids on a Friday or something. I quite like it when the kids all end up in here at the end, because then the parents have to come in here and have a look around, and suddenly after doing that for a few weeks, they kind of walk in without even thinking about it, forgetting that it's actually a church. That's the thing, breaking down these barriers, getting this stuff out the way, so it's not a hurdle for people to jump over.
I know the one time where the kids were down here and they couldn't just come up to their parents because they had a whole bunch of stuff they needed to carry in that. I went round to the parents' cars. Normally the parents just wait in their cars and the kids go to them. I went to the cars and said, sorry, your kid is waiting for you downstairs, but I'm going to need you to come into the church. And this one dad looked at me and was like, you want me to go into the church? I said, yes. And he said, are you sure you can't just call my kid? And I said, no. So yeah, he wasn't chuffed.
Yeah, people, yeah, it's a strange, weird place.
Do we have this sort of people on duty that do like a kind of welcome?
Yeah.
They stand at the door,
Yeah.
because
We're doing it next week. You don't know
Did you know my biggest fear is that I'll go say welcome to someone that's been coming for like
That's fine. Then you can both laugh about it. You know, if they've been coming that long, they're Christians and they understand because they've probably done it themselves. It's like, just laugh about it and
But
move on.
that's one of the reasons we came, because, you know, when we were at the Baptist church, to be honest, we kind of slipped in there and slipped out, and nobody really kind of.
The person who knew your name was Craig.
Yeah.
He knew everybody.
Oh, wow.
It was actually
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people in his congregation.
It's a big church, yeah.
He knew everybody by the name.
But I mean, otherwise, I mean, we went to the Bible study, so we knew those things, but I mean,
Yeah,
it just wasn't, you didn't feel embraced.
yeah.
I don't know if maybe now you want to just quickly mention briefly those 3 rules.
Yeah, coming up.
Oh, okay,
They're coming
okay, yeah.
They're coming up. Let's keep going. We sometimes don't invite our friends because we assume they won't come. We just jump to the conclusion they won't. Here's a good question. Do you think people are more willing or less willing to go to church than Christians are willing to invite them?
Hectic. That's hectic.
Because there's been a survey. And the survey says that people are more willing to come to church than Christians are to invite them. That's a fact.
It's just that Christians
There we
are
go.
too shy
Christians
to
are too
invite.
shy to invite, but people would have come if they had been invited and they just weren't invited.
That's tragic. Yes.
So there's something to think about. Salespeople who do well, the good ones, what makes them good salesmen, good saleswomen? Well, they're usually optimistic. They normally assume you are going to buy the fridge. That's their initial, that's the approach they have when they come. Is they assume that they're going to get a sale, and they're disappointed when they don't. And they are persistent, right? They'll phone you again. Are you sure you don't want to change your mind about that fridge? You know, it's on special today. And there are only 3 left. And usually at that point, Shane buys one just because he, he can't resist. But they persist, they follow up, don't they? Good salesmen, they do that.
And
yes, John.
I saw a survey not so long ago on the best car salesman in the United States, and his secret to success was he treated every single person identically. So if a guy was a 16-year-old kid who'd come off the street, or the guy walked in the fanciest suit, he would treat them with utmost respect, and that was his key.
Okay, there we go. Treat everyone the same. No favoritism, no prejudice. Yeah. There we go.
I think that's also, I mean, like if we know a history of someone, we tend to be already thinking about that before, like some of these young adults or some of the teenagers, if we know that they come from a background of drug abuse or something, I'm not going to be very optimistic as I go into that comment. Hey, do you want to come to church? Never mind. It doesn't matter, but we're going to treat them the same way we would as if we invite our best friend.
Yeah. And be optimistic. Be optimistic. Know this, that when you invite someone, you've got God on your side. When they say no to you, they say no to God. And God wants them in church. God wants them to hear the gospel. And so God is working behind the scenes by his Spirit in their hearts. You're speaking to their faces. God is speaking to their hearts. And so go with that attitude when you invite someone. I know God wants this sinner to be saved. Let me invite, and who knows what God will do. And let me invite again and again and again and again. Every opportunity I get, not in a stupid, bombastic way, but take opportunities and assume that God wants them to come as well. So maybe you want to think of some examples of people you could have invited even this week. There's one particular lady that I always see when I go into a shop, and she knows me by name. I walked in there the other day and she said, "Hello, Amy, how are you doing?" And it struck me as she said that, I've never invited her to church. Never invited her. And she knows, we know each other that well that she now calls me by my name.
Does she know you?
Yeah.
So she would expect that.
So, I need to do something about that, don't you? I know someone who, when they go to the petrol station or when they go to the grocery store, they always go to the same teller. Always. They will stand on the long queue, if that's what it means, so that they can be served by the same teller in order to build a relationship with the hope that one day they can invite that person to church. So they are intentional about this thing. So they're constantly seeking to build a relationship, not just just inviting someone randomly. That doesn't work. But ask them how their kids are, how their marriage is. How's your husband? I believe you just got married. Keep tabs of people, and who knows what opportunities it might present.
We had a minister, you'll remember, who used to always go to the same hairdresser.
Yes.
To get them to church, and even when the hairdresser became ridiculously expensive, that was just like they joined the fanciest hairdressing thing in the whole of Durban, and he would still go there to have his haircut so that he can.
Just because he wanted this guy to come to church, and he wanted this guy to get to know him and realize that he's not actually that weird.
Yeah.
He's a minister, but he's just normal. Okay, so being an active partner in your church. Notice the word I didn't use. I didn't use the word member. Okay, because members expect to be served. If I'm a member of a golf club, I expect good service from my golf club. I pay good money and I expect good service. But we're not about that in the church. This is not we don't have members here. We've got partners, people who are equal to us, working just as hard as anyone else for the sake of Christ. So once we make the attitude shift from being passive pew sitters to and receivers to active workers and givers, there is no end to the difference we can make to others and to the running of the meeting. Think through your church meetings chronologically. What can we do before, during, and then after meeting? So before the church preparation, the minister should not be the only one preparing for church. What can we do to prepare for church before the meeting? During the week?
At home to pray for.
Praying for, that's right, praying for the church service, praying that newcomers would come, pray for the minister and his preparation. The rosters are always available. You know who's going to be leading the singing. You know who's going to be leading the service. You know who's going to be preaching on Sunday because you've got the rosters. And if you don't have one, go to the website. They're on the website. You can always see for the next 8-10 weeks who's doing what. So pray for them. Pray for those people during the week. Read through the passage if you know what's going to be preached. Read through it. So you're preparing yourself to hear the Bible. We did that last week. What benefits might there be to proper preparation for church? If we know what's going to be happening roughly, if we know what passage is going to be preached, well, we're better prepared again to speak to newcomers and to help Christians maybe as well. You know, if you know what's going to be preached, you might think of someone, sure, they could really benefit from hearing this. And yeah, they might go to a different church, but that doesn't matter. If you think this sermon could be helpful to them, come along. If you know Warwick is preaching, or if you know, whoever's preaching here, and you think, wow, I would love so-and-so to hear them, invite them. Because you've done a bit of homework. You've thought a little bit about what's coming up next week and the week thereafter. So this week, we've got Wayne Barker's and next week in the evenings. We've got Warwick coming on the 15th. We're going to be advertising all these dates. And so you might be thinking, I know someone who was married by Warwick, because half the nation was married by Warwick. You know, they haven't been going to church for a long time. I'm going to invite them because actually they know Warwick. You know, I know someone like that, the Vermeulens. Come to think about it.
The Vermeulens were married by Warwick.
Yeah, I don't know if they were married, but they met at the youth group, Warwick's youth group.
Okay.
So there's a couple that I should invite because Warwick's coming and they know Warwick. So I've just, my preparation is helping me to reach out. And then meeting visitors and newcomers. We enjoy meeting our friends at church, but we need to develop a nose for new people. Remember, someone else has most likely been praying for that newcomer and has plucked up the courage to invite them. And you know how hard it is to invite newcomers. And so if you see a newcomer, you know how much effort someone has gone to get that person here. And so be friendly to them. Don't go and fight with them. You're sitting in my chair, you know, or you parked in my parking. They don't need to hear that. Be sensitive. And so what practical things can we do to make a newcomer want to come back?
Well, I don't know, Pete Fox is the best.
Oh,
Yes, he's incredible.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean,
He's
he
amazing.
really is good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pete Fox.
The doctor, he invites everybody here. Yeah. Maybe go and greet them. That's a good point. If you see someone new, take the chance of making the mistake that they've actually been here longer than you. Say, I don't know, have I seen you here before? Forgive me if I'm an idiot, but I don't recognize you. Can I introduce myself? Or if you,
Your mask could be your excuse.
your mask could, yeah, that's a useful excuse. Oh, sorry, I didn't recognize you. Sit with a newcomer. If you see a newcomer sitting by themselves, go and join them. Introduce yourself to them. Be a friend to them, sitting there by themselves.
Also find, actually taking it one step further than just your name, but actually inquiring a little bit more about their life, because it's very easy to shake their hand and exchange first names and nice to meet you, hope you enjoy the service, and then you walk off and join your friends. Actually talking to them a little bit more, what do you do and where do you stay, and just show a little bit of like genuine interest.
Let's remember that what is church on a Sunday? Church is the family of God. Paul calls it the household of God. It's a family gathering. And what happens when someone invites a guest into your home? Well, you're hospitable to them. Hey, you tell them where the bathrooms are, you tell them where the kitchen is, you tell them, I don't know, where they can park, and you, how are you doing? Anything I can get you.
Often a cup of tea. Can I make a cup of coffee before the service?
That's what you would do at home. When your daughter brings the boyfriend home, you hopefully.
Maybe not in that case.
But you're friendly.
Driver's license.
Yeah, what's your driver's license? Did he?
First, no one. I know what it is.
So it's a family gathering. Be friendly. These are guests in our family gathering. So this lady Rebecca McLaughlin, and you can check her out there on Twitter at Rebecca McLaughlin. She wrote the following the other day, and I shared this with our staff team on Monday. My husband has 3 rules of engagement when we go to church. Number 1, an alone person in our gathering is an emergency. In other words, everything else can wait. Nothing is more important than this alone person. Someone is standing in the corner, usually at the missions board reading because they're awkward. They don't want to talk to anyone, and they just, if there's a notice board, they're normally at the notice board. You can pick them out. Or at the library going through the books. They're not really interested in the books, but they just can't face. They don't know all these people. And an alone person is an emergency. Drop everything, and make an effort to go and introduce yourself. Number 2, your friends can wait. They'll still be your friends after church. So don't just go ahead straight for your friends, chat to your friends. After the service, go straight to your friends, chat to your friends, then go home. Friends can wait. Invite them to come to your house after church. But at church, you're there, remember, to work. You're a worker. Thirdly, introduce a newcomer, be that a stranger or your guest that you brought, introduce them to one other person as well. So they leave not only knowing you, but one more person as well. Those are good rules, eh? That's helpful advice, I think. So keep that in mind. And then she goes on in another article I read actually to say, church on a Sunday is your mission field, and you are a missionary. You're a missionary at church, seeking the outsider, seeking to serve the gospel on a Sunday morning or a Sunday evening. So how might the attitude that you're a missionary at church change what you do? I don't know. What would a missionary do? You know, they would go out there, meet people, they would sit with them, they would see if they can help, explain what's going on, tell them what's coming next. If you see someone with kids, tell them, oh, you know, it's fine, in the evening especially. Keep the kids inside. Afterwards, the kids will go out with our children's worker. In fact, can I show you? Let's go and have a look. Let me show you the building where your kids are going to be to see that it's safe. And you're a missionary on a Sunday when you're here. Why might you choose? Here's a good one. Why might you choose not to sit together as a family when you come to church?
Because in a family.
If you've had a fight with your wife on the way to church, it might be one reason.
Well, everyone can go and make friends with someone else.
Yeah, you might find that there's someone sitting there, and I might say to Belinda, go and sit with that person, go and say hello, and you sit with them today. Because that's more important actually than the family being together at church. The outsider, remember, the alone person is an emergency. And you might choose actually to send your kids to go and sit with other kids, your wife to go and sit with someone else, and you go and find someone else to sit with. Why not? And you all together as a family, you can be far more effective sitting all over the show. Your teenagers with other teenagers, your little kids with other kids, with their mates, just bringing everything together.
Did you risk that people think that you had a terrible fight?
You go. And then during church, active listening. What do you think active listening is?
You might want to take notes.
You might want to take notes. It's the opposite of passive listening. It's the opposite of sitting there doing nothing while you listen. So active listening is energetic listening, you might say. You might want to take notes. You certainly want to give eye contact with the person who's speaking to show that you are participating, that you're active, you're with them. You participate as much as possible. You might nod. All of this is encouraging to the speaker and actually encouraging to those sitting around you, because it makes them listen a little bit more attentively. So rather than playing on your cell phone while Andy's preaching, look at him, show an interest. When he says, look at verse 3, you look down at verse 3, you look up and down, you're involved in the sermon.
Does that happen, Andy, when you're preaching, that you see somebody is looking on his or her phone, and it's you're sure it's not the Bible? That's a possibility.
Yeah, it's a possibility it's the Bible, but it's not always the Bible.
Yeah.
No,
Okay, you spot that from the
often. Yeah. Now you see everything. How do you think the teacher sees everything? From the front, you see everything. They can't hide anything. Yeah. So what might the benefits of active listening be? I think we've covered that. It's encouragement to the person speaking. It has an impact on those around you. It helps them to focus. It reminds them of what they should be doing as well. Unbelievers, it'll have an impact on unbelievers. They see, sure, these people are actually, they've got a hunger, they've got an appetite for the Bible. Amazing. Christians soak up the Bible. And then singing, what part should we play during the singing? I'm talking about if you're not a musician.
Blow off the roof.
Yeah, sing with gusto, okay? No mumbling along, showing very little interest. That's the beauty of congregational singing, is that it doesn't matter if you can't sing. It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, I can remember going to Cardiff to the Springboks versus Wales match there. A friend of mine bought me a ticket and took me there. And there's, I don't know how many people does that stadium seat? 60,000 half-drunk Welshmen singing the hymns, mind you. They sing hymns during the rugby matches at the top of their voices.
Really?
And none of them can sing. Well, the Welsh are quite good at singing, but not when they're drunk. But together, 50,000 people. I tell you, I was nearly crying. And the point is that it doesn't matter if you don't have a good voice, if you're singing in a crowd. Somehow, that's the beauty of choral singing, choirs,
We had an old minister in the Anglican church, who was just so funny. And he said one day, now, come on, we're all going to sing. If you haven't got a good singing voice, now's the time to get the Lord back. Just made everybody
Yeah, so sing with enthusiasm. It's also encouraging to the singers and the musicians. They've practiced, remember, during the week. They've rehearsed. They've come in early. And so it's a great encouragement when the congregation actually sing. Wasn't the singing great on Sunday, actually? I thought the singing was really good. And it's great. And it sets the tone for the service. And if you're singing with gusto, well, the people around you will sing with gusto.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, if you stand there and you're barely moving your lips, not singing, the guys around you think, okay, well, we also probably shouldn't be singing too loudly either. And that just spreads through it. And it's,
It's like a funeral.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah. So, yeah, especially in our mornings, we really need to work on the music that gets chosen and the music that's played, and we need more musicians. That's what we desperately need, are musicians in the morning. We've got.
Have you heard about the Pick and Pay at St. John's?
Yes.
And he sings all the choruses we sing.
Yeah, I know.
I actually said to him when I was collecting for the SPC, I said, don't you want to come to our church on Sunday? Maybe you can.
Help us in our
plays beautifully.
Yeah.
And people just love what he
Yeah.
sings.
Where is St. John's?
St. John's Pick and Pay outside. He stands with his
Outside the
guitar.
kick store.
Oh, right, the guy with the guitar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. Yeah.
But we can move our bodies as well. Maybe.
Yeah.
It's
Show a bit of life. We don't want dancing, otherwise Jill will shout at you. But there's nothing wrong with being a bit expressive, or, some people raise their hands. I'm not against that. Participate. That's the whole point. Is that
You raised your hand for a moment when we were doing.
Yeah, I repented after that.
Did you really? I have never ever seen you raise your hands during a song. So you're gonna leave us to go to Oasis now, Dad? I know, I'm so bleak I missed it. Oh, dear.
The whole point is that you're not going to the movies or a sports game to consume. You're going to participate, remember? So you participate in the confession. We say it together, and we say it with meaning. We say a meaningful amen after someone's led the prayers. We participate in the singing. It's meant to be a corporate worship service together. We are here together.
Especially in the case of music, because we are not, we are musicians, but we're not performers. We're not there to perform for you to listen to us.
Yeah.
Our job is to lead the congregation.
So you guys got to perform.
And so we're actually not doing a very good job if you guys aren't louder than you guys are meant to actually be louder than us to drown us out.
The congregation are the performers. You're meant to hear the voice of the congregation, not of the singers. So then logistics, and we must press on quickly. What are the advantage of the smooth running service? It's fairly obvious.
Finishes on time.
Yeah, that might be one thing. But you distraction. Hey?
It was coherent.
Yeah, and it's not distracting and it's just it's a mess and no one knows what they're doing, and so didn't know they were meant to be praying, and the devil will use distraction to take people's minds off the message. He'll use anything he can, and distraction is a good one. So a smooth running service is essential for people to hear the gospel clearly. So how can we help the service run smoothly? Well, look for opportunities. If something is causing a problem, go and fix it. If everyone's hot and bothered and all the windows are closed, open them. If the door's slamming, go and close it. I don't know, just help. If there's a problem with the sound and the sound guy at the back is on his cell phone and he hasn't noticed, go and give him a clap on the ear and tell him to fix it, because it's distracting. If the fans need to go on or off, whatever, get up and do it. If the kettle's boiling and making a racket and these people have been distracted, get up, go and switch it off. You don't wait for the ushers or the official people to do something. Get up and do it. Help the thing to run smoothly. And the newcomers during the service, how can we help newcomers during the service? Well, just be aware of them. Be aware of their needs. If there's a crying baby, they might not know we've got a mother's room. You might want to have done that before. When they walk in, here's the mother's room, here are the bathrooms. For the older kids are going to go out there. You might just need to reassure people. And if someone's going to the mother's room, go with them. Go and see if there's a light on, is the sound okay, anything we can bring you. Just be friendly, But you need to be sitting near a newcomer if you're going to be able to help them. So you need to choose your seat carefully. That's coming back to that thing. If you see someone by themselves or looking a bit lost, go and sit next to them. Or at least go and sit near to them so that you can jump up and be of help. It's not good you sitting at the back and noticing someone in the front and you can't do anything about it.
It may be taken the wrong way though. If you sit during the service and the baby cries and then you point it out.
Yeah. So that's better before, isn't it?
Yeah.
Show them before. Yeah, absolutely. And then after church, nearly there. After church, what can we do? A couple of things. Discussing God's word. How can talking about the sermon help someone else? And how can it help you? Well, it might just reinforce the message. It might clarify something. Someone might say, I didn't understand this about it. You might be able to help them. And it helps you as well to discuss the sermon with someone else. It's like going up to someone and saying, what did you think of the sermon? They're going to run a mile. But you might want to pick up something that was said and say, wasn't that interesting? I'd never thought of that before. Or I didn't know Moses was called a prophet. or I don't know what you're going to pick up something in the sermon that you, and during the sermon, think of something that if the opportunity comes, you can use it. And there might not be any opportunity, but it's helped you to listen more carefully. But during the sermon, you might think, that's something I could use to discuss with someone afterwards. There's a hook.
I think especially the visuals or the quotes that you present.
Yeah.
You shouldn't underestimate the coat hanging that could be for a talk afterwards.
Yeah. Exactly.
It also helps you to not let the sermon just wash over you. It's very easy, by the time you've driven your car home and got home, you actually, wait, what is the sermon about again? Like it goes in here, out here. This way, it forces you to just give it a little bit more thought. So by the time you get home, you've been talking about it with someone and still there.
Exactly. You might not be able to pray with others after every service, but look for opportunities and be prepared to pray with someone. If you notice someone that might be very distressed or very emotional, or go and ask them, see if you can do. And if you know they're a Christian, if they're one of our members, say, what about you and I going, let's just go and pray a little bit or something, So be prepared. We don't make a big thing about, prayer room and all. Some churches do that, and they've got people that are on standby to jump in and pray. We don't really do that, but just be aware of that. Some people might need prayer at church. And, a single mom, we say, hang over a week. She might come to church completely frazzled and has had no adult company the whole week. She'd love just to sit down and pray with you. Pray with them. And the newcomers after the service, how can you help a newcomer after the service?
Offer them tea or coffee.
Yeah, offer them tea or coffee. Try and get them to stay, because they are going to make a run for it as quickly as they can. So you got to be quicker. Okay, you might
close the door.
Close the door. Especially if you're on welcoming duty, you might actually want to get up during the last song and just hang around.
Get ready to catch people
and catch people. And just if you see a stranger leaving or coming out and looking a bit bewildered, not sure what to do next, you're ready. You're ready to help them to answer questions too. What would make you unavailable to newcomers? It's not a well-worded question, but if you're heading, instead of heading to the newcomers, you're heading to your friends, or you're heading for the coffee because you wanted to get to the coffee first, then you're not available, are you? Because you're chatting with your friends, or you're busy trying to get yourself a coffee and a hot cross bun. Make sure that you're available first to a newcomer or someone else in need before you start worrying about chatting to your friends or heading for the coffee.
Andy?
Yes, who's that?
John.
John.
Can I just say that there often are people that don't want to be greeted, and I think you need some emotional intelligence there, because I've had a few people, you can tell from a mile away, they don't want to be greeted, or they just want to sneak in and sneak out. So there's also, it's really important to try and respect that person. You can quite quickly tell without looking that they don't want to talk too much, or they don't want to have to answer too many questions. Like sometimes people actually, and I think we need to allow room for that too.
For sure. So you don't rush up with a membership form. I remember that's how I was when I first started going to church. I didn't want to be noticed. I didn't want anyone to talk to me. I sat at the back. And as the months went by, weeks and months, I started sitting closer to the front. But when I first started going to church, I sat right at the back and I was the first to leave. And I didn't want to actually engage with anyone. So respect that, and like you say, emotional intelligence is needed, and maybe you want to watch out. Here's the thing: for someone who's been cornered by someone who's got low emotional intelligence and doesn't realize
that happens.
It does happen.
Yeah, that happens quite a bit actually.
Go and rescue them. Go and rescue them from John and tell them that.
Oh.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. And here's another thing. Don't you go and tie up the minister after the sermon.
I'm guilty of that.
So
I'm
many
aware of
people, so many people are, they come racing up to me at the front, corner me, and then they want to talk about, I don't know, something that could easily wait. They've got my number, they can phone me, they'll see me on a Wednesday or on a Thursday or on a Friday. We don't have to talk on a Sunday, especially when I'm trying to catch the newcomer who I see disappearing out the door. And here I'm stuck.
Or just wait until later on when
Yeah.
everyone's packing up.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, the minister's in a rush to get home. Chat to him then, rather let the first bit straight after the service be for the minister to meet the new people.
Exactly. And then lastly, second to lastly, why might you choose not to be the first one to leave church? Well, your work hasn't ended when the sermon ends. Hey? You've come to church to work, remember, and not to consume, not to be entertained. And so there's a lot to do. And I know there are people on duty, but if you can stay, why not stay and help? Get there early and stay late and help out. There's stuff to unpack or pack or put away or set up for evening, or yeah, you might choose to actually stay late, which is a great thing, and serve. So church isn't just from 9:30 to 10:30. Church is from, I don't know, 8:30 till 11. You know, you set aside 3 hours, 4 hours for church because you want to get there early, see how you can help. You might want to go pick up rubbish, make sure the pavement's neat. I'm not going to get a chance to do that. You might want to stay afterwards and help, I don't know, help the tea ladies, do something. But we come to church to serve.
I saw that the other day. It was for the morning service, and there was a whole bunch of litter strewn across the grassy area out front here. And one of the old guys, and I don't know who he was, but he parked his car in where he would normally park, but then he was crouching over picking up all the litter.
There we go.
Because a newcomer is going to see, oh, litter strewn across, I'll just keep driving.
Yeah.
So, yeah, great work.
Great work. Good on him. And yeah, it's hard work. It's a busy Sunday, but you know what? You've got Monday to Saturday to rest before next Sunday. And then lastly, think about last Sunday's service and your plans for this Sunday. What practices in your church meeting last Sunday might have alienated non-Christians? You might want to come and tell me, because I might have a blind spot. I'm not noticing these things. You might say, Andy, you know what? Sure, I found, you know, maybe you want to change the way you did this, or did you notice that? Or come and, you know, I'm not scared of criticism. You've got to have a thick skin in this job. Come and chat to me and criticize me, and, you know, I don't know what the problem might be. You stood with your hands in your pockets, or you did this, or you did that, or I don't know, things that you pick up that just might have alienated someone and made them feel awkward or unwelcome. We want to sort that out. We want to sort that out. And I can't keep an eye on every department and every part of the church grounds, you know. And there you are. What are your plans for this Sunday? Make your plans now for next Sunday. You know, what time are you going to get to church? Are you going to pray for the people during the week, etc., etc.? Because preparing is as important for you as it is for me for church.